Whoa, 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 whoa. Can you make it make sense? Yeah. I'm just trying to get my bands up, put my mama in a mansion. When he talks, now I'm.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another edition of Make It Make Sense. My name is Kush Jenkins.
And I'm Anthony Otaigbe.
All right. And here, money talks and we listen. So we're here to make it make sense for you. So how was your weekend?
My weekend, today is Wednesday. It's pretty late to be asking me how my weekend was, because you should have asked me. I don't remember how my weekend was.
Man, come on.
It was chill. I mean, for me, a weekend usually comprises of working / and then taking breaks to relax.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
Do you work during the weekend?
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
So wait a minute. Are you like? Do you have the Christian ethos of working 6 days and getting the 7th day off? Or do you work 5 days?
I think I have that more of a Protestant work ethic. I tend to work until the job is done.
Mm-hmm.
So if I feel like something could be done today, I don't want to wait till Monday to do it. And I'm also doing a lot of different things. I'm in, as you know, a doctor's program, and I'm also managing my CPA firm, Otaigbe and Lumsey CPAs. So both of those things keep me pretty occupied. And also, we teach. We're colleagues.
Yeah.
So there's also that aspect. So
midterms around the corner. So.
Right. So I can't afford to be like, all right, Saturday and Sunday, those are my
take the day off. That means that you push all this work to Monday through Friday.
That makes life stressful. It's more stressful.
I got a question. Do you work or are you having fun? And maybe this is going to lead up to our conversation about wealth and happiness.
That's a very critical question.
Right. Are you having fun or are you
critical
working?
Question. I think the teachers from my high school would probably beg to differ about how much fun I'm having. I remember when I told them that my major of choice was accounting. They're like, but don't you want to be happy? Money isn't everything.
Right.
Money isn't everything.
Happy.
You know, and if they go by the definition of your passion is what you don't have to get paid to do,
right?
Then I don't know if we could call accounting my passion per se, because I don't know if I would do that for free.
Mm-hmm.
Do I enjoy accounting?
Oh, you wouldn't do accounting for free?
I don't know if I would do somewhat like. Okay, it's a hard question because
cricket.
If someone was to call me and say, "Hey, I have some questions," of course I'll answer them, and that's fun to me. That what did I say? That kind of back and forth, that conversation. Yeah, I don't mind that. I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching. Would I do that for free? I basically did. I was a tutor back when I was an undergrad, and I didn't get paid for that. I was tutoring people in accounting, so. Yeah, but when it comes to actual like real deal accounting, I think I need to get paid for that to really, keep the motivation there. It's also what I've spent time into. Like when you invest time and money into something, you want to get the returns back. So there's also, I think, a bit of that. But if we're talking about something I don't need to get paid for, but I'll still do,
right?
I could write a song, and that would be like so challenging.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd be like, oh my goodness, because I stress over like every bar, everything, but I'll do it. I'll suffer through all of that whole writing process
for free.
At the end, it'd be like, oh, I have this nice song. Spend money on studio time. Spend money on a music video, and it's I'll be fulfilled.
Right.
You know, I created an app. For a language learning app like the Rosetta Stone for ASAN. It's a Nigerian language.
It's got a lot of revenue streams going on.
So that was a charity project.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah, right.
So
you got an organization set up around that.
Yes,
right?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Connecting and leading ASAN youth. So those types of things, I don't think accounting in itself is my passion. I think I like what accounting can do for people. That is really my passion. Adding value to people's lives using accounting.
Okay. All right. That sounds.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a full weekend. For me, I would say this week, up to this hump day has been very interesting. There's a lot going on. I, we're going to talk about this in the news piece. I made a ton of money, right? I've been shorting the market. Sorry, everybody.
People that short are considered to be very pessimistic people.
Sorry.
People that don't really have faith.
I'm not sorry about that 65% gain that I've had in the last 5 days. Right. So I'm not sorry about that. However, I have a pretty strong short position in my portfolio right now. Probably over 50 to 80% of my portfolio is short.
Wow.
Yeah, strong short position. Considered taking something off the table last night. However, I did not. I don't know if that was laziness or whatever, but And so, but I was waiting on a market correction because I had questions about our economy. And it always bothers me when I make money off of the death of others. Right? Because truly this correction has happened because of the coronavirus and this pandemic, right? And so that's not why I went into it, right? I mean, the reason I went in is because I figured that there were some economic headwinds we were facing.
Right.
And now what we're seeing is that people are actually suffering. So for me, my Christian ethos kind of says, this is, I can hear my my conscience saying, don't forget to make that charity check, to to the church this week, right? That, and then the other thing is the Harvey Weinstein verdict, right? Has definitely gave me pause. And we could go into that since and that's a current event. So everyone knows Harvey Weinstein has recently been found not guilty. Found guilty. I said not guilty. I can't believe it. He's been found guilty.
He was not guilty.
He's not guilty of the stronger the thing that would have given him life, right? Predatory stalking charges, but he was guilty of the sexual assault charges. And I want to be clear that I was, justice. They say he's guilty, and I'm hoping for the best for these young women who went through their ordeal, and I hope that justice is served, right? That Harvey Weinstein is now, he is in jail, and they're going to and he may be facing charges in Los Angeles, and he may be spending the remainder of his life in jail. Here's what concerns me as the father of Black boys. The news conference afterwards, the DA for New York came out and said, he comes out and he says, okay, we have, and they have revolutionized how sex crimes will be fought. And now we're having, and his quote was, now there's not just no time limit for sex crimes, but you don't even need evidence of a sex crime happening. Furthermore, you could have a consensual relationship, because some of those relationships that Harvey Weinstein was having were complicated. And he's saying you can have a consensual relationship for 2 and 3 years. However, if one time there was something that there was a sexual encounter that there was a disagreement with, there's no longer this idea that you could say, well, we had a relationship for the last 2 or 3 years, so therefore, did I really? No. The DA of New York is saying, no, you're a rapist. Black men have been lynched since the beginning of this country for sexual for sexual theories, innuendos, gossip. I lived through the Mike Tyson situation. I was a young black man through Mike Tyson and Kobe Bryant. So then when you say, and it touched close to home because I watched my father go out of his way to protect his young black boys from that type of lynching, right? And I had a thought that I had done my due diligence for how to protect my sons. Tell them no means no. Treat women with courtesy. You know, if she says no at any time, just back off, right? Now, I'm literally having to tell my oldest son, go get the Consent Act app and make sure that every time you have a relationship, consensual relationship, that they fill out this consent app, not only consenting to the act, but I would appreciate if you make sure that they detail what they want to consent to. Because I'm afraid that my son could be lynched. Because, yeah, you put Harvey Weinstein away. Look, black men have been lynched. I've got a book filled with lynching pictures of black men being lynched because they whistled at women, because they looked at women past a certain amount of time, because there was rumors that they had relationships with these women. This is the American, I don't want to say, it is just how America has been. And I thought, man, I had came to a point that I felt maybe I could have some rest with that. But when I heard, and it's not the conviction of what Harvey Weinstein, I want to make sure everybody understand me. It's not the conviction, it's the statements of the DA after the conviction that made me say, oh no, this is not, if you would do this to a white man, well, how would you treat my sons? I mean, I'm still appalled about, what the NYPD did to the brother that was selling cigarettes, and he said he could not breathe, right? And they still choked him to death. I'm appalled what the Cleveland PD did to the young boy who was playing in the park. I'm appalled. So excuse me if I hear the DA say these things, and I'm like, I'm thinking of my children. Right? I'm thinking of my son. And to have that come a week after, we just spoke of this 2 weeks ago about Kobe Bryant's situation, and then it being brought up during his death. I'm sorry. I people might criticize me, but I really was concerned. When I heard that DA, I thought, here we go again.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very controversial, no matter how you slice it,
right.
Anybody's reaction towards the results of the verdict,
But I'm not talking about the results, right? The verdict is one thing. I'm talking about what the DA came out and said, the precedent that he was trying to set, and that is just.
When he said, like, oh, rape is rape, no matter whether it happens 15 years ago or whether you don't have it, that part,
okay, right? So that, because then now I'm like, okay, do we have a group? Because it seems like I hate to put I'm just worried about my sons. And it seems like when it comes to black men, we have a different measuring stick. And I'm just afraid. I'm like, oh my goodness. So what are you saying? If a girl comes back 15 years from now and says that, if Emmett Till was 30 and that young lady came back and said, oh, he whistled at me, what happens then? Right? It just disturbed me that, we have a rule of law, we have a court and a judicial system, and the judicial system did its job, right? Harvey Weinstein is in jail, but yet you're having a conversation about reconfiguring what is guilty, and you're pushing back the goalposts. And just like I said in the conversation about with Kobe Bryant, I said, what is innocent? What is innocent? And now I'm here 2 weeks later saying, what is guilty? Right? What is guilty? And I'm afraid that they might have done something that is a little bit, we've swung this pendulum and we're swinging it back where we're persecuting instead of prosecuting, where we're not getting people off the streets for these wrongs, but we're persecuting people. And I hate if people feel some sort of way about it, but I'm in a group that gets persecuted. Like it or not, I have to face the facts that, this country took down people that I looked up to as a child for this issue. And you took them down when the goalpost was right on the 20. Now you back the goalpost back 20 more yards. I'm wondering how many other black men you're gonna pick up.
Yeah. It's definitely something to me that the reason why I think it's so polarizing is because it's really a cultural change.
Yeah, yes.
And whenever the culture changes,
Mm-hmm.
people that were there before it changed
Mm-hmm.
are obviously going to feel culture shock.
Right.
So you grew up in a time where, phone, you didn't really need a phone to,
Mm-hmm.
bag a girl. Nowadays, this app you're talking about, it sounds like it's going to become the new cultural norm to
right. It's going to be
get
necessity.
official permission, and that looks weird to some people, to a lot of people. That how is that natural? What is the implications of this? If that's not present, how much at risk are we? Those are, I think, some of the questions that people are having, and that's why some of the.
I think that we are on our way with this Me Too movement of that app being as regular in that type of relational interaction as condoms.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Right. You gonna have those condoms, and you gonna have the app.
Was there a point in time where people were like, rubber? What do you?
Yeah, there was. Right. Condoms, right? Seatbelts. What is that, right? I mean, I lived in that time. In my early years, seatbelts was like what? Like I was looked at as a goody to have a seatbelt on.
Wow, that in itself, that's a microcosm of just what cultural
shifts,
how it shifts.
Yeah,
because me growing up, buckle up, Virginia. I saw those signs. Ooh. You could get pulled over, if you don't have your seatbelt on. Be careful. Have your seatbelt on. Don't pull up to a cop. But that must have been done in response to some issues that.
Let me tell you, I grew up in a totally different world, right? I remember I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, I remember teachers having a smoke room for their smoke break. So they smoked where? Inside the school. Now you can't even smoke on the school premises, right? But I remember teachers smoking inside the school in the smoking break room. So it's a totally different world, right, than what we have today. But in this case, I'm just concerned for my sons, and I'm concerned for a lot of people. And should we have gotten these people off the street? Yeah, But when I look at the scoreboard, I think that, Matt Lauer is still out. He's not. There's no prosecution against him. There's no prosecution against Charlie Rose. There's no prosecution against the guy on Prairie Home Companion. And I'm not saying they should. I trust the justice system will do what it's supposed to do. But when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm just like, white men, the only person who went to court was Weinstein. The rest of them, they haven't been prosecuted. So I'm sorry if I'm looking at those numbers and thinking, oh, I'm afraid for my sons. But as a father, I have to look at how things are and not how I would like them to be. And right now, as they stand, I see something for me to be concerned of. This is a business person, right? So that thing gave me pause, right? And then, and then coronavirus gives me pause. Well, before the coronavirus, listen to you talk.
Well, they're calling it COVID now. I don't know if you've noticed.
COVID,
all of a sudden, the news outlets have changed their.
Yeah, it's got it's more defined name. I think it's something with their.
That's supposed to be the disease that coronavirus causes.
Right.
Because it's like an autoimmune, I believe, where all of a sudden, because you've got that virus, you've contracted that virus, you're susceptible to
this. Right. Yeah, I don't. But before even that, the other thing that this weekend I was looking at was the Democratic primary, and we had the debate yesterday. What did you think about the debate? What do you think about the primary in general? Right at this point.
Yeah, I heard bits and pieces of the debate yesterday. At this point, with all the debates that we've had, there's already an established front runner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure what the debates can do.
Right now, that's Bernie Sanders.
Right. And I'm not sure what the debates can do to really shift that. I don't know. Can debates really have the power to shift one front runner to another? Unless you deliver one binders full of woman comment type.
Oh man,
I don't know.
Right. I've seen people go and die in the debates. Right, their candidacy die
from no one to someone.
No, I've seen people go from someone to no
Right.
one. Right. I've seen them get shot down. Right.
Right. But I guess from what I've seen so far, I think I don't know if these debates have really too much affected. Maybe I guess for like Elizabeth Warren and differentiating her from Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, right?
Other than that, I think everything outside of the debates is really what's been pivotal in, at least in my opinion, what the positions of each of the candidates are. I heard recently that Michael Bloomberg, he had a gaffe in one, not a gaffe, but like he kind of was unprepared in his show.
Oh, the first debate, yes.
Yeah.
It was,
right, but did that really make any impact on his standing in the
right?
I don't have the numbers, but
I don't think. Okay, so I saw that, and I saw last night's debate. I don't think that Michael Bloomberg had a gaffe. I just don't think he knows. Like, I think he has an assumption that everyone, and this is just my theory. I think that Bloomberg assumes that he lives the average everyday life, and he doesn't. That's the kick, right?
So I hope he's not campaigning on that. That would be a horrible.
When I go back and look, like, let's take for instance Stop and Frisk. He seems to not understand why people are being stopped and frisked, right? Or he seems to have a disconnect, and I'm wondering if his disconnect generated because in his mind he's thinking, okay, so why would the cops stop your helicopter to pull you out to frisk you if you weren't doing anything wrong? And did you hear what I'm saying? Stop your helicopter.
Wait, is that a direct quote?
No, that's not a direct quote. I'm
Oh.
just thinking this might be what's really going through his head.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's like that video, and you can Google it and look on YouTube. There's a video of President H.W. Bush, and he went to the grocery store one day, and he was amazed at the scanners. This was like 1992. And people are like, look, he doesn't even know what a scanner is. He doesn't know what a scanner is. Like, he's never seen a scanner. Why? Because he went from the ambassador of China in the 70s, 60s and 70s, where there were no scanners, right? There's CIA director. You think we're letting the CIA director go get his groceries? Vice President of the United States. You think he's going to get his groceries while he's Vice President? President of the United States. So when he was doing his campaign for his re-election, and you took him to the grocery store, and he's amazed to see a scanner, that's all real content, because he's not, the CIA director is not ever supposed to see a scanner, right?
Right.
And so when I'm looking at Michael Bloomberg, I'm wondering if his disconnect comes because he really doesn't know. Like people, the way people think, the first thing you try to do is you try to figure out how that works in your life. So, when you're talking about nieces and cousins, let's take President Obama for instance. You're talking about, oh, your cousin is being arrested, being profiled, right? President Obama doesn't know about his cousins being profiled because they all live in Kansas and they're white. What profile? Remember, his mother's side is from Kansas, so his cousins from Kansas are not getting profiled, and his father's side is from Kenya, and his cousins from Kenya are not being profiled. So he doesn't have family members sitting at a dinner table like me saying, oh man, I was driving down the street and they saw me in my car and then they pulled me over and checked it. He doesn't know that because he doesn't have family members. He might have his in-laws are going through that. Yeah. We're both married men. Your in-laws. right. Your in-laws, come on.
Yeah.
That's totally different from your first cousin saying, hey, this happened to me. So when I look at Michael Bloomberg, I think that he is putting his life into the life of others, and he's like, I think some of his anger about gun violence is because he's like, well, there's no guns in New York. No shit, right? They've got all these laws, right, confining the they're not Second Amendment friendly, so no, they don't have a whole bunch of guns, but other places do. So yeah, when I look at him, I think, man, I don't think he's aloof. I don't think that he's answering wrong. I just think in his mind, the first thing that's clicking is, how does that work for me?
So you're detecting some signs that he might be out of touch.
He's out of touch. He's just disconnected. And I mean, why wouldn't he be out of touch? He made $1 billion on Bloomberg. What do you think he was doing the last 10, 20 years, 30 years? Since the 80s, Bloomberg. So I think it's a little bit out of sync for us to ask, oh yeah, he should know. Really, should he know? I don't think he should know. Right? Bernie Sanders, I don't know. I have serious doubts that he wins
the primary.
I have serious doubt. No, I'm a little bit more confident that he'll win the primary than he'll beat President Trump.
I'm hearing that a lot.
I mean, okay.
Because he's not centered enough, or because of socialism being like a stigma.
That's a problem. His remarks concerning Fidel Castro is probably already lost in Cuba. It's lost in Florida, in the Cuban community in Florida, right? Which is your swing population. So if you're not going to win Florida, then you really need to pick up Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio. Well, you got to hold Minnesota and Wisconsin. You got to pick back up Michigan and Pennsylvania. It would be nice if you pick up Ohio. okay, I don't. Michigan and Pennsylvania have black populations. They have minority populations. Oh, and Ohio to some extent, but not to a huge extent. And then Minnesota and Wisconsin don't have as much of a black population to make that type of swing, right? The real deal, you need to cater to probably suburban white women. I think that's your target in those four states, right? And I'm like, I don't see any meat on the bone to get suburban white women to come out and vote for Bernie Sanders, right? He's not accenting the fact that, you know, President Trump has said all these horrible things about women. He's not accenting his highlighting his record for women. I just see someone that women are going to look at and be like, no.
Oh, but I mean, if you compare him to the other option, right?
President Trump?
Yeah. It's the lesser.
No.
You don't think it's the lesser of two evils type of scenario?
I don't think women, and I'm talking about suburban white women, right? Like, I think that's your demographic you got to get out of those 5 states. And I know there's a lot of conversation about drilling up getting more black vote out. I don't think that's going to get it. I think you really need to get into that the suburban white female community and get them to change their vote. But I don't see them. I don't think that they feel like President Trump's assaulting of women verbally and physically trumps or surpasses how the economy is going or how they feel about their lives at this point. And no one has put that out in front of them. I'll tell you another group, I would like target moderate white men. And I would say I would target moderate white men because Trump is the number one candidate for Russia. He's their number one. We know he's their number one candidate. There's 2 guys out here
Russia's
right now.
A voter block now.
Well, yeah, they are. They are. I don't know. They're not a voter block, but they're a constituency that have a candidate, and their 2 candidates are Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Our intelligence community has told us this. They've told us this now. And I'm shocked that the Democrats, especially Vice President Biden, hasn't just walked on stage and just said, Bernie Sanders is the person that the Russia wants us to elect. Do you want to go with Russia's? I mean,
okay, before we go down that road, but in your personal opinion, out of all the Democratic presidential candidates, or I guess primary candidates, I think we should say at this point, which do you think has the potential to do the most for the Black/minority population of America?
Great question. I'm gonna give a 3-way tie to Tom Steyer, Bernie Sanders, and Michael Bloomberg. And Michael Bloomberg is a default situation, but I think that Bloomberg really cares about children. I think he really cares about gun violence, and I think that would be a positive for our community. I think that Steyer is just all around. He's talking serious about reparations. He's not talking this idea of getting a committee together. He wants to go straight and headlong into that conversation and have an apology. Then you've got and then Bernie. I think Bernie is in that conversation. A lot of his the things that he's proposing would be beneficial for our community. So those 3, I think.
Oh, sorry.
And I think that um I think that President Trump has done some things for our community, but we just haven't we haven't been able to galvanize around these things and make them work, right? For example, you know, he has made it so that you can pay for your private school out of your 529 plan. So that means that for many states, that will be a tax benefit on your state taxes. So and then so for me, I'm like, okay, you've got people in our community who are in bad educational situations. Well, here's a thing that you could use, a way you could use to better your situation, right? But it has to be communicated to you. You got to know how to use it, right? So I think that he could be serious about giving money to HBCUs, if not just for the fact that it will be a snub to President Obama. It would be a huge snub to President Obama. So just out of his vengeance, we could be utilizing him more to give more funding to HBCUs, right? Because I think that his anger towards President Obama is unbounded, and anything he could use to discredit President Obama, he would use it. And I think that we miss an opportunity to use his blind hate against him. That makes sense. We're a community. We're not going to turn on President Obama.
No.
However, we could go. I mean, what is wrong with going to a man and saying, "Hey, President Obama has kind of set the bar low for going to the black community and giving to HBCUs. You can double that bar, and use that as something against him. You can go to Morehouse and make a speech to Morehouse where you speak wonderfully about these Morehouse men, instead of maybe like more of a, I guess President Obama had more of a task. He called the Morehouse men to task without the love of the fatherly love that comes with it. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
You could go to President Trump, say, just go in there and say they're wonderful. They are wonderful, right? So I think as a community, we still have time to utilize the president's anger against one of our own as a means to garner some more fruits from him, but we just don't.
On the topic of Tom, what's his name? Steyer. Yeah. With his reparations, I haven't really dug into what his idea of it would be. But in your opinion, what vision or what kind of reparations plan do you think would be the most effective in quelling the racial tension between the racial tensions in America?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you that there's no reparations that could be given to quell the racial tensions in America, right? If black people got a penny, people like Mitch McConnell and his ilk would have they will probably faint on their Kentucky bourbon to find out that we got anything as far as reparations, right? Because that is
and monetary
minutes, right? There's a minutes of guilt or of wrongdoing, and they do not want to see anything on their forefathers being claimed to have done something wrong. And then on our side, as African American, our community, I don't know if there's always going to be a naysayer, and there's a naysayer in every community. So, everybody could have got $1 billion each, and there's going to be somebody that's going to come out and say we should have got $1 billion and a Cadillac. Right? Really?
Do you think
what I would love to see is funding for HBCUs increased, right? I would ask for funding for like agricultural funding for the black farmers to be loosened and increased, more help for them to get help with their businesses. I would ask for independent, and maybe we recreate the Reconstruction Bank, the Freedmen's Bureau, and we make the Freedmen's Bank again, where we're handing out loans to African American businesses, where we're empowering African American communities, right? We're going directly to the community. Bank loans, right? Funding, building of businesses, right? Waive all these fees that you have to pay for opening businesses, right? And land, right? I would definitely be an advocate for some sort of land or something that happened on that nature. But education, land, maybe rebuilding homes or something. But education, education, business, community, business development, right? Community development, agriculture. Those would probably be the first things that I would seriously talk. Maybe no real estate. If you don't give us land, that's fine. No real estate taxes. Waive our real estate taxes, right, for our property. Those types of things. How about yourself? What would you see as?
I don't know, because for me, I guess my answer is more of a question. Do you see any potential drawbacks? Maybe not for the immediate generation that would see the reparations come into play. But do you see any potential drawbacks that the effects of reparations could have on future generations? If, let's say, for example, you allot a certain amount of land, if that's one of the agreements, do you think, and you know how we think, me and you, we have a type of, I don't want to say bootstraps, but yeah, business minded. Part of being a business is lack of resources. You got to try and make something happen out of nothing. That kind of drives you. Do you see some of that kind of killing the spirit in a way to where now, if you know that if you just apply to this program and you can prove that your ancestors were slaves, you will be allotted this, and this, as opposed to some type of day of reckoning like they did in Africa, in one country that had like some very bad ethnic turmoil, where they kind of just hold like a referendum or a conference and just have a discussion about that, just basically, okay, this is what happened, and this is how it affected me, my family.
Truth and reconciliation.
Right.
No, I think that, okay, so to answer your first question, yes, there will, and maybe the majority of people who would receive reparations, right, will lose it within 2 to 3 generations. But that's through their own choices, right? And so I believe that people should have the freedom to choose what they want to choose, right? So if you get a piece of land and you sell that land, right, so that you can go into a business of finding a cure for coronavirus, and you end up losing all your money for that, right? Because you can't do it better than Johnson & Johnson or Procter & Gamble, then that was your choice, right? That doesn't mean that, oh, you went into that business, oh, but you lost all your money. We're gonna give you a buffer. No, you lost all your money. We're in a society where you've lost. You've got to take responsibility for your actions. So for me, yes, there's gonna be people who get those reparations, and then within 1 to 2 generations are going to be back where they started. That's just the nature of our society and humanity. And your second part of that is, would you say the
effectiveness as opposed to a truth and reconciliation.
Right. I think it'll be a lot more effective. I mean, I mean, truth and reconciliation in South Africa is still not really, I mean, they're making it out to be something that is not. I mean, the strife that they've even had when it comes to like Nigerian businesses and different businesses coming in, and they started doing this expulsion, shows that they still have some deep-seated underlying turmoil in their society. I don't I believe that when someone pays, right? Like Harvey Weinstein, to go back, he has now been found guilty. He is paying society back for his crimes by being in jail. Eventually there'll be a civil case and he will pay those young ladies back with monetarily. Once that happens and you make that person whole, right? Then later on, if that person comes and says, well, you know, I really feel like I didn't get enough money, you say, well, wait a minute, you got money, right? When it comes to truth and reconciliation, you come back and say, well, I really don't think you were genuine with your apology. Then you got to restart the whole process, right? So, and we only talk about truth and reconciliation when we talk about non-Europeans. I mean, we didn't talk about truth and reconciliation with Germany, both world wars. We didn't talk about truth and reconciliation when it came to Bosnia or when it comes to, you know, all these other groups. We don't talk about truth and reconciliation. There's tangible payments made back to them. I mean, the Haitian government wasn't told, hey, why don't you just have truth and reconciliation with the French? Why don't you just go tell them from the bottom of our heart, we are sorry that we freed ourselves from your slavery. That wasn't asked. And so when truth and reconciliation is only talked about when you talk about non-Europeans.
So is your point then that the effectiveness, that you're saying that monetary / programs that are designed to promote or help, you know, the betterment, welfare of the groups that were afflicted, those have a greater propensity to, I guess, I don't want to use the word make make people happy, but satisfaction.
It's just how the justice system works, and it's just how it's worked historically, right? I mean, whether you go to Hammurabi and eye for eye, right? And what is he saying? He's saying, well, you poke my eye, so you owe me an eye, right? You know, and so can you really that code, and now we've gotten to a point where we're saying to the powers that be, right? Yeah. That the powers that be are saying to us as a society, well, maybe just a sorry will work. Well, I'm sure that, I mean, I'm sure the Kaiser would have loved to said sorry, right, to Europe, but you weren't talking about sorry. That makes sense. You didn't ask for Japan to say sorry. I mean, they were like, okay, you're gonna say sorry, and there's gonna be some actual stuff. And then America had to rebuild Japan too. They're like, I mean, Truman didn't just get up there and say, I'm sorry, right? He had to rebuild. So I don't, you know, truth and reconciliation is fine. I'm not against the idea. I'm just saying it's not the entirety of the situation. It's just a piece.
My issue with reparations, I think, and I know we dwelled on this topic, but I think it pertains to, you know, because it keeps getting brought up, I think it actually does pertain to how does that affect my pocket? How does that affect me? How does that affect my money? And it does directly. Who's going to be paying for those reparations? So my issue, though, is when we talk about the discussion of reparations and we talk about the suffering and what you're trying to correct, fix, you know, it kind of invokes to me like when you have a loved one that perhaps was hit by a car and died,
Yeah.
and you take the person that did it to court,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, all right, let's settle. What number will work for you?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it invokes to me, and it's like,
is there a number on a life, right?
I hate to reduce it to that, but it's like, do you really think that both parties, well, maybe one party will be satisfied that you're no longer going to sue them, but is that really what's going to satisfy?
What did Dr. Friedman say? There is a number on the life, and we've known that for years. We just haven't been upfront about that. So Dr. Friedman comes out of the University of Chicago, one of our most renowned modern economists. He says that's what actuaries are about. That's what the insurance company is about. Why don't we do what is the calculation to when? And this is if you can look it up. Dr. Friedman says, what is the calculation to when we do a recall on a vehicle? The calculation is when costs outstrip the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is the cost that we're talking about? We're talking about human lives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how is human life have an infinite value?
Mm-hmm.
If it does, then that means that when we find out one car has a defect that could put a life in jeopardy, we recall all the cars. But is that how we actually act in our economic system? No. Those companies, the motor companies, the car companies say, we're going to recall when 1,000 cars have this defect.
Mm-hmm.
And so what have they done? They've actually put a value, indirectly, they put a value on human life and saying a human life is worth 1,000 vehicles. Until we see 1,000 defects, we're not going to.
That's a great point.
So we've already crossed the Rubicon when it comes to this idea of a value on a life. That's already happened. This has happened back in the 1960s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess my question more to the point was, when you spoke about the purpose of legal proceedings is to make someone whole again.
Yeah.
Am I going to feel whole again even after you pay me $10 million to settle hitting my loved one? Am I going to feel whole?
You might not feel whole. No, that's a loss, and we're saying, hey, that has no value, but the system is trying to make you whole. Is attempting to make you whole, right? And at this moment, I would say that the American system is not even making an attempt. We're talking about it, which is wonderful. That's much better than when I was a kid. But as far as saying, okay, we're going to actually start having that process, it's not.
Interesting. You know what I think will probably happen with these kind of reparations things?
You know what?
I think it's probably going to start to it will come into effect. What you'll start to see is certain groups will become marginalized, and now all of a sudden, only certain groups of those afflicted people might be eligible for those programs. And now there's a new
group. No, I think that they are going. If I was reading the tea leaves, I think the first group that are going to get reparations are the people of Tulsa. Because what those who were against reparations had staked their flag on is that you couldn't put your finger on a person who was directly affected by slavery, the violence, and whatever. And I think that America knows or has a feel on Tulsa now, and they know it's wrong. They're embarrassed about the situation. The more and more evidence that we have of what they did to that Black community is more and more damning by the day. And I think that they're going to be the first Black community to get a reparation. And then it will trickle down from there. Then you'll get Greenwood. Then we'll have conversations about Wilmington and Stone.
But the problem is the test. The problem is testing. How have you been afflicted? How have you,
No, we still have survivors. right? We still have survivors. There's very few, but we still have survivors from Tulsa. They're dying, but then you say, well, okay, then they die, but posthumously their kids get it, right? When we're talking about slavery, we're talking about great grandkids or great great grandkids, right? But when we're talking about Tulsa, we're talking about I think we still have a couple more survivors and their children, right? So no, when you're talking about those types of issues, those incidents, we're talking about incidents that have happened within the last 100 years.
Mm.
And so they are going to start getting reparations. I think from that reparation group, we'll start expanding and saying, oh, well, we redlined the people of Detroit. Don't they deserve something? We shot down. We shot down the people in Stone Mountain or Forsyth, Georgia. This guy got lynched. Emmett Till's family. Don't they deserve something? Edgar Everett's family. Don't they deserve something? And that's how it's going to start to happen. Don't the kids who integrated these schools deserve something? Because Virginia's already given reparations or some form of reparations to the people who survived the shutting downs of schools of Prince Edward County and Norfolk, city of Norfolk. So those are the things that they're going to start happening. And I think that's where the reparations will be. And we'll trickle from there.
You don't think it's going to devolve into, okay, now prove you were,
No, I think it's going to be proof, but it's easy to prove. Like for the people who were afflicted during the time of Prince Edward, when they shut down the schools of Prince Edward County, you just got to prove that you lived in Prince Edward County and you were going to school. You were going to the black school in 1958, 59, and then the next year there was no. You already know there's no school. That's all you have to prove. I think it's going to get simpler and simpler. I don't think it's going to get more complicated.
I guess the angle I was looking at it was from, because you know how they have these what do they call those things you can do to trace your DNA?
Yeah.
You know, well, you know those things.
23andMe and all that, right?
To some extent, you know those things are kind of biased because I remember asking one of my colleagues, you know, at Exmod actually, you probably know. He, you know, I was like, hey, like he was able to trace his history all the way back to like England,
right? Okay.
You know, and he's Caucasian, he's white. I wasn't too surprised because, you know, during that time the documentation, record keeping, as compared to Nigeria, right? You know, my family is not there. Yeah. So if you were to make a decision, who can prove their history or whatever, and that's going to be part of the criteria or whatever, he's got a better chance than me because I can't trace all I have is stories and, you know, whatever the case may be. So
we're not worried. At this point, it's going to be, okay, Emmett Till got lynched. Who were his siblings? They deserve something. Medgar Evers got lynched. Who were his daughters? And who's their descendants now? They deserve something. It's going to be that simple. I don't think, you know, Malcolm's children and Dr. King's children. It's going to be that simple. I don't think it's going to be all that complicated in the future of this. I think we're going to look back on some of these incidents and just say, okay, we should be giving them something.
I guess I was looking at it also in a practical aspect because if I'm having difficulties proving as a Black person that my family, you know, was slaves and was affected, but I still haven't seen the, you know, benefits of that, but I'm paying into that system, but I haven't seen it. Isn't this Social Security all over again with us as the younger generation being forced to pay into a system that we might not even see once we, you know?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that okay, so young people, if you've been told that you're not seeing the benefits of Social Security, you've been lied to. You are seeing the benefits of Social Security because your grandparents and your great-grandparents don't live with you. Your grandparents and your great-grandparents, before Social Security, one of the reasons Social Security was implemented is because prior to Social Security, I think it was like 25 to 30% of the elderly were going were going hungry. Right? They had homes, but if you have a stay-at-home mom who raised the kids and their husband worked and their husband died in a coal mine accident, they own their house, but there's no food. So we had issues of people really eating dog food. So the question is, do we have those issues now? No. Do your grandparents live with you? No. Are you worried about them eating? No. Why? Social Security. Because if that system wasn't in place, then you or your family would have to fund the well-being of the elderly, which means what? That now you've got an extra expense. So your ability to move forward in this economy you're getting welfare. You're getting a social net. So this idea that, I'm paying in Social Security, but I'm never going to see the benefits. You see the benefits right today. You've just been lied to. And people have deceived you to make you feel like you're not seeing the benefits because they want to get rid of the benefits. And then one day when your grandma, because she took out a 30-year mortgage nowadays, which is a more newer concept. Now she had refinanced her house on a 30-year mortgage, and now she has no more Social Security and she's home with you. Then you realize, I would love to pay my Social Security tax so my grandma could live independently. Then they will be in the house.
That's a really great point you made, Kush. I think a lot of times we forget to look. We're always trying to look at the nominal amount of money that what cash are we seeing?
Yeah.
The cash I can touch.
Yes.
I want to be. If I don't see that, I lost it. It's
right.
not coming. But we don't think about the cash we would have spent had
that system not been in place. Right. Where would you be without that system? Medicare and Social Security. Your grandparents would be at your house, and you would be subsidizing their care. So which would you rather do? You want to pay Social Security and let the government subsidize it, or do you want to subsidize it? And the only reason you're paying Social Security so they can subsidize it is because your grandparents paid for their great grandparents. Where would your family be, like economically, if they didn't have that leg up, that wind behind them to progress them?
It's hard to think that way though, because I think part of the millennial generation where we're seen as entitled, we're seen as this is the way things are. We, fundamentally, about why should I be feeling like I saved money because my grandparents are living with me? I'm not responsible for them. So is that really a savings to me that I paid for them to go? No, that's a cost to me. Therefore, the only thing I should be paying for is my own welfare, my own benefit. So if you're telling me I'm not going to see that by the time I'm their age, I still lost, so you've changed the direction of thinking.
So let me say, my kids aren't entitled. Millennials, if you've been told you're entitled, that's another lie you've been told, right? You're not entitled. You just expect more than what the generation before you expect, and you're supposed to. I told my niece and nephew, we were staying in a suite, and I told my niece and nephew, I said, when you turn 40, we need to be in the presidential suite. I'm raising their expectation so they can expect more. And to the outside observer, that might look as entitlement, but to me, that is growing us to the next generation and the next step. So you throw these bad terms onto the other generation, they're entitled. What is entitlement? Oh, they want these cell phones. You didn't want a cell phone? No. You want to know why? Because it didn't exist, idiot. They want Teslas. They don't drive. Yeah, because they have Uber. They don't have to drive. Well, they want everything now. Yeah, because companies have been giving it to them now, like Amazon. But last I checked, Jeff Bezos is not a millennial. Jeff Bezos may be a Gen Xer. So that means that your generation is the one that spoiled them on the idea that they could get something now. So the only millennials that are in the IT field that are big is Facebook CEO. The rest of them are Gen Xers and boomers. So if your problem is that they get everything now, then guess what? It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your generation's fault. So if you want to fix it, go back to your goddamn house and fix it.
I think that's definitely...
Yeah, no millennials. What millennial? Okay, is Google run by millennials? No. Netflix? No. Yahoo? No. Disney? Bob Iger just lost stepped down CEO today. Did he look like a millennial? Do you want me to keep going? Is Apple run by a millennial? Is Samsung run by a millennial? It's just Facebook. And that's just a small slice of the bigger pie. All that stuff that you're getting immediately and direct and that's feeding into you, that's all created by Generation X and boomers. And then they got the nerve to turn around and tell you, well, they want it now. You created it.
Wow, you changed the conversation. That's definitely interesting.
Yeah, well, so I just peeled through the BS.
So it's not our fault, is what Kush is saying. We were brought up this way, and now it's, we're being blamed for the way we were brought up. It's not our fault.
No, it's definitely not your fault. I mean, you didn't. I mean, millennials, y'all haven't built one school. You haven't endowed one university.
But what about that one trip in Costa Rica that we did to build houses for?
Okay, I'm glad the video's here. Maybe I saw my face. I'm like, what? I'm like, come on, man. You haven't had enough time on this earth to institutionalize something to make it to the point that it justifies like that criticism of you or your generation. Not yet. I mean, you're getting there, and there's things that I think that you could do better. But trust me, you're not as bad as you think. The old folks are tripping.
Thanks. That means a lot coming from a Gen X like yourself.
I appreciate. Hey, no problem. All right, guys. So we'll be wrapping it up for us for today. So for me, Kush Jenkins.
And Anthony Otaigbe.
All right. Thanks for coming out. And this is Make It Make Sense.